I thought it was going to be one of those long lectures and you'll fall asleep, but I was intrigued the whole time. Like, it just touched me, all the stories and everything.
No, I actually expected it to be like really boring and.
Well, when I first came here, I'm like, guest speakers, it's probably going to be, all bunk and everything. But
it was much more, I don't know, to our levels.
I thought it'd be really boring, but
I thought it was really good. It changed my way of thinking.
I expected some lady to kind of just talk to us about how sex is bad and gross and dirty and everything like that. But
they were really honest. I didn't expect people to be that open with people they'd never met in their life. And I guess the honesty made you believe it more.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be boring and not too much action.
So I thought I knew it all, but it turns out that there's always so much more you can learn. It was awesome.
I don't know. I thought it would be kind of boring and just the same old type of talk where they just rattle on you about it, but...
Well, I came here thinking that if it sucked, I was leaving in 15 minutes. And I'm going to leave here just being totally amazed at these people.
I don't know, it's just a lot of my friends that I know, it hit all of us, basically.
And I just want to thank them for doing such a good talk, because it touched me so much, and I can't even express how much my life is going to turn around after this.
Welcome, everybody, to our talk this morning. Our speakers this morning, Jason Evert and Crystalina Padilla. They come to you from Catholic Answers in San Diego, California. And I would like you to welcome our guest speakers this morning, Jason and Crystalina. Jason, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I wanted to start off in a quick prayer, so if you join me in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Jesus, we pray for the gift of purity that we might be free to love, and we entrust our time together to Our Lady as we pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Joseph, pray for us in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. To get started, I need a guy volunteer from the audience. I need a big guy. Big. Okay, you're pretty big. Okay, come on down. Yeah, that'll work. Come on down. Give him a hand. Come on up here. There you go. Now, what's your name? Luke. Good to meet you, Luke. Everybody say hi, Luke. Hi, Luke. Now, Luke, do you know what the talk is on today?
It's on chastity.
Yeah, I'd say it's a sex talk today. So since this is a sex talk, we've got to cover certain issues like how far it's too far to go with a girl on a date, and stuff like that. So what Luke and I are going to do is he and I are actually going to show you guys how far is too far to go on a date, okay? Now, and in order to do this, I'm going to be the guy, Luke is going to be the girl, okay? Now, Luke's not a very pretty girl, but that's okay. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But we can change that. So we'll get Luke prettied up a little bit. So why don't you throw this on? There you go. That's the front. It's a little nappy. You'll be pretty. There you go. That's frightening. Now I've actually never dated anyone named Luke before, so we're gonna give you a name change, and your name is gonna be Shanae, okay? So now Shanae and I, we decided to go for a date. So we go for a date at the Grand Canyon, like right here, and I start thinking to myself, well, how far do you think I can get my beloved Shanae to the edge of the Grand Canyon without actually throwing him off the Grand Canyon? Him, her, it, whatever, but there's only one way we can find out how far you can get to that edge, so I've got to pick you up into my arms, okay? All right, so hold on to this. Hold on to me. Gotta hold on tight. Hold on to Now, how far can we get to the edge? Can we go further?
That's far enough.
Okay. All right. Take a seat. Give him a hand. Good job, Luke. Thank you, bud. Now, good man. Now, Now, what's the point of that whole deal? The point of that is basically this, that none of us guys would take a girl who we love to a dangerous place and say, well, how close can I get to killing her? You know, usually we don't ask, but when I was in high school, we'd always ask in our relationship, well, how far can you go? I mean, should we do this together? Should we do that together? And I went to a big Catholic high school, and we'd always bug the religion teacher about it. Well, how far can you go with a girl? Can you do this on a date? Can you do that on a date? And we'd really bug him on it. So one day, he pulls me aside out of class, and he's like, Jason, he's like, I know what you're doing on your dates. And I'm like, uh-oh. And he says, Jason, you need to start bringing Jesus with you on your dates. And I'm like, okay, you know. And he's like, no, Jason, it'd be fun. You know, you can go to dinner and Jesus is there, and you go to the ball game and Jesus is there, and you drive home and Jesus is right there in the car. He's in the back seat. And I was like, well, don't you think it would get a little crowded? And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, you know, all three of us in the back seat? He's like, that's not funny, Jason, you know. He's like, you need to be in the front seat, Jesus in the back seat. So I was like, fine. God can come on my date. I figure God could come to dinner, God could come to the ball game. Then we get home to the girl's house, it's time to say goodnight. The parents aren't home, so it would be like, Jesus, why don't you just kick it here in the car for like 30 minutes, you know? Just basically saying, you know, if only I can keep the author of love out of my love life, then I'm going to have some freedom, then I'm going to get some real romance. Because I thought that God was the rival to love. That if you want real love, real freedom, real romance, you have to keep God out of the picture. I didn't realize that he actually has a plan for our love lives. To prove this to you, I know a guy who just got married, comes back from his honeymoon, sat on the couch. He opened a photo album and he called his wife over. He's like, honey, check it out. She sits down and he goes, this is a photo album of me when I was a little kid and I went to Europe with my family. She's like, oh, cool beans, you know. She sits down and she goes, I went to Europe when I was 8. And he's like, oh, for real? Where'd you go? She couldn't remember. So he starts flipping through and he's like, well, that's me in Italy. That's me in Switzerland. That's me in Paris. He flips the page and he goes, check this out. He goes, this is me on the steps of a church in Eastern Europe. He goes, there's hundreds of us. They're all total strangers from different countries just having lunch. And he goes to flip the page and his wife grabs it. She freaks out and she's like, ugh. And he's like, well, what's shaking, bacon? And she goes, honey, look at you in the picture. And the guy's like, so what? She goes, honey, look at the girl next to you in the picture. She goes, honey, that's me. And sure enough, they're sitting hip to hip on the steps of the church. They never met when the picture was taken. They went their separate ways. God thought it'd be fun to have them meet about 10 years later, fall in love, and give this to them as a wedding gift that his hand has always been on them. So you never know what God's up to. I mean, you might be sitting right next to your future spouse right now. You know, not you. I mean, don't go there. Now, I didn't think... Now, I didn't think that God had this big plan for my love life. And in high school, they'd give us the sex talk, but every time they gave us a sex talk, all it was about was like guilt or fear. It'd be they'd get up there and they'd be like, sex is bad, sex is dirty, or they'd be like, you know, you're gonna die, sex is gonna kill you, you know, and they'd try to scare the pants off you or pants back onto you if that be the case. But it was all about fear. All they tried to do is scare us. They'd sit you down and they'd talk to you about gonorrhea, but they never sat us down and said, now here's the difference between love and lust. Here's how you know when you really love a girl, and here's how you know when you're getting used. They never made that stuff clear to us. So I remember I was in high school, I hooked up with this one girl, and we were doing all sorts of stuff, and she stops me. And she's like, Jason, you're not gonna leave me like the other guys, are you? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, you're so sweet. And I was like, okay, all right, anyway, and whatever. And we did different things, then we came up to that line, and I had to ask myself, okay, you know, should I lose my virginity to this girl? And I thought, well, do I love her? And I thought, well, I've known her for 3 days. And I'm like, what is love? And I could hear in the back of my heart this voice that just said, Jason, this gift is not for her. That gift is for your bride. Please wait for her. And we cooled things down. We went our separate ways. I hooked up with another girl, came right up to that line, and then the same voice, Jason, this gift is not for her. That gift is for my bride. Please wait for her. And we cooled things off. And so to this day, I'm still a virgin, and I'm as happy as can be. And most people think that by the time you get in your 20s, like I'm going to die of virginity or something. You know, I'm going to start having like virginity conniption fits or something. You know, like I'll start foaming at the mouth from virginity, and, you know, I'll explode and die here. You know, Luke will be like, whoa, you know, what happened to the sex guy? And you're like, oh, you didn't hear? He was a virgin. That'll kill you. Forget about it. The virginity's not lethal. I was at the airport the other day, and I saw this magazine. I had to pick it up here. It's called Complete Woman Magazine. All right, just a splendid periodical. Subscriber. Okay, And so this guy's in here, they're talking about sex. And this guy says, quote, he said, sex is extremely important to me. When I'm in a relationship, it's essential. In fact, a year ago, I felt compelled to break up with a woman I really loved because we didn't have sex enough. The lack of sex nearly killed me. So apparently he's rushed to the hospital for lack of sex or something. But this is what we're basically told, that if you're not having sex, something's wrong with you. Maybe you're dropped on your head as a baby or something. But then they say, but if you have had sex, it's too late for you anyway. We hear this constantly. And I know some of you are virgins, and I know some of you are not virgins. And frankly, I don't care what happened last weekend, last month, last year. I mean, it's in the past, and I mean, I care, but what's happened has happened. For those of you who are virgins, I say good for you, because people who get married as virgins have a divorce rate that's 60 to 70% lower than those who won't wait for marriage. Now, some of you are thinking, well, Jason, look, I'm not a virgin anymore. Or Jason, I had my virginity taken from me. Does that mean I'm gonna have a messed up marriage? If you're like me, you're so sick of the whole divorce thing. I was just over to high school in Washington. After the talk, a junior comes up to me and he goes, Jay, I know what you mean about divorce. He said, Jason, my dad is on his 9th marriage. High school junior had seen his dad get 8 divorces. Now in LA, I live in San Diego. Up the coast in LA, there are jewelry stores in LA where you can rent wedding rings. You don't have to buy them anymore because I know you're just going to dump your wife. You might as well save some money in the whole exchange. I found that out because I had to go shopping recently because Crystalina and I got engaged a couple months back, which is a pretty cool deal. So thank you very much. So, but we're also sick of the whole divorce thing. So it starts to make a bit of sense. But what about everything that comes before sex? Can you do this on a date? Can you do that? Easiest way to figure it out is this. We're at this high school in Chicago. At the end of the talk, we did a Q&A. Guy raised his hand, and he goes, okay, Jason. He says, your talk was fun. He said, but can we get specific? I said, well, sure. And he goes, well, I want to know exactly how far I can go with my girlfriend. I said, well, that's a good question. What do you want to do with her? And he was like, uh-oh. I said, yeah, okay. I said, well, we're not in 3rd grade. We can be specific, mature. What do you want to do? And he's like, cool. He's like, can we do this and this and this and this and this? And he goes through this list of sexual favors. And I said, well, okay, we'll slow down. Pick one. And he's like, okay. He goes, I got it. He goes, oral sex. Can we do that on a date? And I said, well, I'm going to have you answer your own question. And he's like, oh, good. And I said, well, do you want to get married one day? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to get married one day. I said, that's cool. So I said, so if you're going to get married one day, I said, that means that your future wife, your future bride, she's out there somewhere right now, isn't she? And for the first time in his 17-year life, he thought about his future wife. And he said, yeah, she's out there. Cool. And I said, but let's say she doesn't live here in Chicago. Let's say she lives where I live in San Diego. School's just getting out right now. So she's coming home from class with her boyfriend, who's a guy that you are never going to meet around your future bride. And he's saying, baby girl, I love you so much. I'm always going to be here for you. Your eyes are so beautiful. And she's like, oh, you're so sweet. And he walks her home and he sits her down on his couch and he's like, hey, baby girl, you feeling fine? Because you looking fine. She's like, stop. And I said to the guy, I was like, dude, I go, you know what's going on that couch, don't you? And he was like, yeah. And I go, that guy, he's emotionally manipulating your future bride into giving him oral sex, trying to make her think that if she gives him that, he'll like her more when he's just using her more. I go, does that bug you? And the guy was like, ooh, gross. No, I don't care. And I was like, really? Does it bug you at all? He looked at the floor and he's like, no, I don't care. And I go, what if it was going on right now as we speak? That guy doing that with the woman who'll kiss your children goodnight. Does it bother you? The guy was like, the guy next to him in class was like, I'd be ticked off. And the guy's like, what? And I said, see, it's pretty easy. If you don't want some guy going there with your future wife, it's a good place to draw the line as well. And this is not a condemnation of any of us. It's a calling to all of us of a better and a deeper kind of love. And I'm not going to stand up here in front of you guys and say, you men in the audience, you guys have to be like me. Because that's a joke, it's a lie. If you're a guy and I'm a guy, we're identical. Look in your heart, same thing as mine. There's this desire to lust after girls, but then there's this desire to properly love a girl at the same time, and there is a tension. But I want you girls to realize the guys you're sitting next to, we've all been lied to about manhood. We're supposed to learn it from our dads, but a lot of us guys haven't seen our dads since we were 3. Some of us see our dads every day of the week, but we hardly even know the guy. No matter what our relationship is with him, we've been lied to at some point in the locker room that, dude, if you want to be a man today, dude, you gotta get some from the girls. Because if you get some with ladies, dude, you're the man. But think about it, get some from a girl. Getting some sounds like a couple of like 7th graders, and they sneak into a convenience store and they shoplift like Jolly Rancher candies, you know, and then they like run into the parking lot. They're like, you know, they run funny because they're all disproportionate because of puberty. You know, their feet are too big and their knuckles drag. And then, you know, they get into the parking lot and then they hide behind a dumpster and they pull the candy out and they're like, I got a red one and a grape one. Whoop, a grape one. Did you get some? Did you get some? And you notice the same mentality. Dude, you get some with that chick? Dude, you sexually conquer that girl? Because if you emptied of her innocence, you robbed her of purity, dude, you're the man because you emptied the girl. And we know that this is totally missing the point of manhood. I don't get my manhood by emptying a girl. I get my manhood by denying myself for love of a girl. And as Christian guys, we only need to know one verse in the Bible to love women. It's out of Ephesians 5, and it just says, men, it says, you love your brides like Christ loved the church. You hand yourself over for her to sanctify her so she would be holy and without blemish. And it says that to do this, Jesus was praying in the agony in the garden, and his sweat became like drops of blood and fell onto the ground. A lot of you, I'm sure, go on to study medicine. You'll learn about this. It's called hematidrosis, which means under extreme stress, the capillaries in your skin will rise up, come in contact with sweat glands, which burst, and you bleed out of the pores of your skin, and your skin becomes a very deep bruise. And I remember the worst bruise I've ever got is I played 3 years of college baseball, and I think I actually set a record for a university, a very prestigious record. I was hit by the most pitches in a game, okay? So it was the first inning of doubleheader. I came up, and first inning, the guy throws the first pitch, and he throws a curveball down and in, and he hits me in the calf with it, you know, pop, and I'm like, didn't hurt. Come back up like third inning. I'm like, dude, there's no way he's gonna hit me 2 times in a game. So crowd the plate, and he throws the next pitch inside, and he hits me in the stomach with it. You know, it's pop, and I'm like, didn't hurt. Came up about like 7th inning. I'm like, dude, there's no way he's gonna pop me 3 times in a game. Just crowded the plate, and he has no one on base. So he just does his full windup, throws his fastball, which they clocked at about 90 miles an hour, and he thought that this one would be delightful to throw into the middle of my thigh. And so just pop, and I land on the dirt, and I'm like, it didn't hurt. But the bruise was so cool because you could see the seams of the baseball bruised into my thigh for about 2 weeks. So it was a cool bruise. Now, imagine, though, your body with a bruise like that. Then they would take Christ and scourge him on top of it. They would wrap his arms around a pillar so his back is stretched out. Then they would come to him with 4-foot wooden rods. At the end of the wooden rods, they attach whipping tassels. And at the end of the whipping tassels, they attach fishing hooks, fishing weights, pieces of glass, metal, and sheep knuckle bones that are very coarse. So when you'd crack it onto a guy's back, the weights hit you like you hit a piece of fruit. It would soften the back tissue. And then the hooks would sink in. All they would have to do is just pull it down, and it would take the flesh off the back of a man from the nape of the neck to the heels of the feet. It said you can actually count a guy's bones in his back. They would do this within an inch of killing him, then they stop, cover him with a linen that then dries the wounds, they'll later rip off, and then they put the crown of thorns on his head. But the crown we always see is this dinky little ring around the forehead. But the burial cloth of Christ indicates that he had 36 puncture wounds through his scalp, through the eyebrows, through the ears, the back of the neck, the top of the head, that they had actually woven this thing like a basket or a helmet. And I bought recently the same type of plant that was used for the crowning of thorns. They made this into a crown instead of a basket, but it gives you the idea that they would have taken this type of a plant, that they would have crowned it onto the head, and then it says that they would have beaten it into his scalp with a reed to keep it affixed there. And once it was put into place, it says that they would have put the cross on his shoulders. Now, he didn't carry the whole cross, just a cross beam, which weighs about 135 pounds. So for those of you guys who lift, imagine putting a 45-pound plate on each side and doing lunges for about 650 yards without the skin on your back. Then they would take him to Calvary, nail him up at the cross, and he would gasp for breath for 3 hours as he completely emptied himself for love of his bride, the church. And then St. Paul says, men, love your brides just like this. Now, you guys are probably thinking like, Jason, what do you want me to do? Like, go up to some girl in the cafeteria who I like, take my belt off, say, honey, look, I love you, whack, whack, whack. I mean, she'd probably get freaked out, so I wouldn't go there. But how is a guy supposed to sacrifice himself for a girl? Well, to be honest, the reason, honestly, why I always confused love with lust in high school is because the influence in my life back then of the pornography. And the thing is that when the teenage girls find out that teenage guys struggle with the pornography. It's not that the girls are all mad at us. They just feel sorry for us that we can't relate to women in a more interesting way. Because as a guy, the pornography as a guy is the perfect way for a guy to shoot his future marriage in the head. Because it trains me that girls, they're things to be used for my kicks. She's got to be constantly sexually available, physically flawless, and when you get done bored lusting after, you go to the next fantasy, and it's no big deal at all because you can judge the value of a woman by how much lust she generates in me. And we would laugh it off. And I'm sure there's some guys in the audience, and in their heads right now, they're thinking, dude, whatever, I got some porn on the internet, I got some Maxim magazine, it's not a problem, I'm not getting anyone pregnant. And while he laughingly tries to think it's not a problem, almost desperately try to convince himself, what happens to a young guy is he gets emasculated. Emasculation means that when a young man is robbed of the ability to be masculine. And pornography flips that backwards, so we men learn to sacrifice and empty the girls for the sake of ourselves, and we miss the whole point of manhood. And in high school, we would totally laugh it off. We're like, dude, who cares? I'm not getting anyone pregnant, it's all good. I'm not killing it, I'm not hurting anyone. We'd have no clue what we were looking at. You know, Pamela Anderson, the big supermodel for, out in Los Angeles, you know when she first posed for Playboy and she started crying? She finally pulled herself together and they took the nude photos. That when you're looking at porn, you're not looking at just some naked body, you're looking at the corpse of a woman's heart. But we would laugh it off, saying, dude, I'm not hurting anyone. We don't realize how much we're hurting ourselves. You know, Maxim magazine, it's a new smutty magazine they have for guys. You know, Maxim magazine has paid computer companies up to $20,000 a pop to generate fake cover models. I'm not saying she's airbrushed. Her legs are fake. Her face is fake. Her breast is fake. The whole woman is completely computer generated. So we as guys are trained to expect our wives to live up to this impossibly perfect fantasy. And where does this leave our brides one day? I had a friend, and he basically assumed, dude, who cares? I'll throw the porn away when I get married. I'm getting married in a few months. Then you can have sex whenever you want. It's all good. And the guy was divorced in 3 months. All that he did was transfer the fantasies of lust from the porn onto his bride, and the marriage was done as soon as it began. So if you think you're gonna get married as a guy and you have the porn, ask yourself one question. Ask yourself, dude, is my bride's body, is it worth waiting to see? Or is she frankly not even worth waiting to see? Because if I can trash the porn tonight, I'm training myself in faithfulness before I ever even meet that girl. And you as a guy could imagine if your future wife is at home from school right now. She's on the computer. She gets an email to invite her to visit some pornographic website of guys. I would imagine you would pray that she would have the strength just to delete it. Imagine you're carrying your wife into the honeymoon suite for your wedding night, and she's got her arms locked around your neck, and she says, honey, I'm so excited about tonight. And you're like, me too, me too, me too, me too. Walking her in there, and she says, honey, to get ready for you tonight. And you're like, She says, honey, to get ready for you tonight. She says, I've been looking at thousands of pages of naked men on the internet. You'd be like, yeah, babe, maybe wait all life, but don't you sort of have to wait with your eyes? And that's what it comes down to. If I can't say no to sex, what's my yes even worth? But I don't think that guys are the problem. I think high school guys are the solution to the entire problem, and I have the research to back me up. They just finished a study of how many high school students are having sex in America, and what they found is this. High school girls, in the last 10 years, your sexual activity rates in America have gone down about 1%. So now 54% of high school girls are virgins. What about high school guys? High school guys in America over the last 10 years, sexual activity rates have gone down 20%. So now the majority of high school guys and high school girls in America are virgins. It's starting to sweep the country. And we're not making up. I saw this at the airport the other day in Newsweek magazine, the new virginity. It's sweeping the country because we want this better kind of love. And to prove to you we all deserve it, having come with me from San Diego is my fiancée, Crystalina. So please give her a warm welcome. Come on up, hon.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, now, I'm coming from a completely different angle than Jason here. When I was about a sophomore in high school, I had my first serious relationship. And after a while of dating, we thought we were in love and everything was great. And slowly, we started to get very physical. And slowly, the pressure started to set into the relationship. And he said, well, girl, if you really loved me, if you truly loved me, you'd prove it to me. You'd show me just how much you love me. So I needed advice. So I went to my girlfriends and I said, well, he kind of wants to do this with me and he wants to do that. And they said, well, if you aren't doing this with him and if you aren't doing that with him, then well, what's wrong with you? Everybody's doing it. You love him, right? And I thought, well, yeah, I love him. They said, well, then what's the problem? So at the age of 15, I lost my virginity, thinking it was going to cause this huge, great emotional bond between us. We are going to be on cloud 9 and so in love. And in all actuality, it eventually destroyed any love in the relationship, and all respect was just thrown out the window. Because if I couldn't even respect my own body, how was he supposed to respect it? And after a while of dating, it seemed like he didn't want to spend time with me anymore. He was basically spending the time with my body. Now, when a girl is being used, she knows it. She knows it in the depths of her heart. She may deny it, she may ignore it, but she knows it, and I knew it. And after a while, we were constantly fighting. He was cheating on me, and we broke up and went our separate ways. Now, I will never forget the day when he walked away from me for the very last time. And as he walked away from me, all I could think about was that guy's taking something with him that never belonged to him in the first place. But I can't get it back, right? What's the point? It's already gone. So there I was in the cafeteria talking with my girlfriends. And I came to this conclusion, okay, if a guy can date me for about 6 months without sleeping with me, then he must love me. Then I'll sleep with him. And I think now 6 months? 6 months is the price that I put on my body? If he gives me just a little bit of that time and just a little bit of that attention, that's the definition of love. And I carried this mentality all through high school. He was the first guy that I slept with, but he wasn't the last, because it starts a vicious cycle. And after a while, I was pretty deep into it. Now, I'm not standing up here pointing my finger at you guys, saying, you guys, you're the problem. No. I happen to believe that you guys will be as much of a gentleman as we ladies require. Now, I wasn't acting like a lady back then, nor dressing like a lady back then. Therefore, they didn't feel the need to rise up and act like a gentleman around me. And what seems to happen sometimes is that girls will give guys sex for the sake of getting the love from them. And guys will give girls the love for the sake of getting the sex from the girls. And it can go both ways. Now, with this lifestyle, I got into the partying, I got into the drinking, I got into the clubbing. You name it, I was into it. And granted, at the time, yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very attractive, and I know what that's like. But I also know what it's like to wake up the next day when that party's over, when those friends are gone, and when I was there by myself. And I remember waking up thinking, I can't believe I did that last night. I hope I don't have to see his face in the hallway at school on Monday. What if he tells everybody what we did last night? What if I'm pregnant? What am I going to tell my mom? What if I have a disease now? What am I going to do? All of these things constantly going through my head. And the night before, my friends would always say to me, oh, it's all fun and games. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But I can promise you and stand up here today and say, the next morning, the fun and games was over. And I woke up hating myself, and I woke up with nothing but disgust and regret. And I knew deep in my heart, it wasn't worth it. There was a girl that came up to me after one of our talks, and she said, you know, during the talk I was thinking, all the hooking up with guys, all the going to parties, doing this and that. She goes, I realized I was just a prostitute who wasn't getting paid. And it hit her. It hit her hard. Now, after a while of living this lifestyle, my mother had an idea what was going on in my life. Most parents have an idea what's going on in your lives. As much as I thought I was fooling my mother, I was really fooling myself. And she came up to me one day and she said, Crystalina, there's a talk on relationships this weekend, and you're going to it. I said, a sex talk? Are you kidding me? I'm not going to go listen to some dork talk about sex. Thanks, but no thanks. She said, no, you're going. I don't care if you like it or not. And I thought, fine, okay. I'll go to her little talk. I'll sit in the very back of the room for 15 minutes, and I'm out of there. I have a party to go to. I have friends to see. I don't have time. And in that 15 minutes that I sat there, my life was changed. There was a guy who was very honest, blunt, and real. He talked about all of the girls, all of the sex, all the pornography, all of the partying he had been into, and he just laid it out. And I felt like that guy, he had grabbed my hand out of the audience, and he walked through my life. Like he could see the things I was most ashamed of and hiding, and I thought, well, what's the difference? He's done the same exact things I've done, and I just watched him, and he just had this peace, this joy and this confidence that he carried about himself that I didn't see that in my friends. I didn't see that in the places I went to, and I definitely didn't see that in the guys I was dating, and I wanted it. But he had one quality above all of them that I wanted more than anything. He wasn't ashamed of himself. I sat in my seat trying to figure out one day that I hadn't been ashamed of myself after I'd started living that lifestyle. I couldn't find one. A single day of just true peace and joy, not worried what I'd done prior that night, prior that weekend, prior that month. Never any peace, always worried. And I realized in that moment, I needed to get my standards out of the gutter and raise them as high as I possibly could. And I needed to start respecting my body for once. And I went home that night and I wrote down every single thing that I had done, which was a lot and it was very overwhelming. Then I wrote down everything this guy had said to me and I put it in an envelope and I hid it in my bedroom. Because I knew that weekend that temptation was gonna be there. And I can promise each and every one of you, those temptations will always be there. But God always promises a way out. And in a sense, that letter was mine. And sure enough, that weekend, there was that party, there were my friends, there were those guys, and I ran to that letter. And it was a very harsh reminder what was there waiting for me, and I didn't do it again. Instead, I wrote another letter, and every single time I was tempted to go back to that lifestyle, I would read my old letters and write a new one. So now I have this huge stack of letters of all of the no's that I've said in my life. Now, Jason here has waited 27 years for his future bride. In 2 weeks, we're getting married. I can't stand up here and say, on those Friday nights, on those weekends I was out partying with my friends, I held myself back for love of him. That I was respecting my body for love of my future husband, because I wasn't, and that's a lie. And I can stand up here and I can look in your eyes, all of your eyes. But every day for the rest of my natural life, I will look into those eyes. And it tears me up that I allowed someone to rob him of a gift that was meant solely for him and no other. Now, Jason knows everything I've done in my past. He knows it all and he accepts it all. But he loves me for the person that I've become, and that's what matters most. But when I turned my life around, a lot of my friends, they didn't get it. They thought it was some big joke. They just constantly made fun of me. They're like, well, what are you, a prude now? What are you too good for us? What's your problem? They just couldn't get it. And they were just constantly making fun of me. And I went home one day and I told someone what was going on. And the best advice they could give me was, oh, don't worry about it. Just ignore it. You're doing the right thing. Well, I tell you today, if anyone makes fun of you for living out a lifestyle of chastity, of purity, of respecting your body, and you get made fun of for that, you remember it. You remember every single word they say to you. Go home, make a book of it, write it all down. Because when you stand in front of your bride or in front of your husband on your wedding day, you tell me, where is the laughter? Where is the mockery? Who is going to be making fun of you then? Nobody. There will be complete silence in that place on that day. And any of those people that made fun of you would pay $1 million to be in your shoes. And when you stand up there, you will say, I will honor you and I will cherish you all the days of my life. Well, today's a day of my life, and today right now is a day of your lives. So keep that in mind and take it to heart, because your lives are going to be so much more than these 4 walls in this high school, and it's going to go way and far beyond that. For those of you in the audience that are virgins, I have the utmost respect for you. And I think that is just awesome. And don't ever be ashamed of that, but be proud of that. Because I know plenty of people who would love to trade places with you, and I am one of them. For those of you in the audience that have made past mistakes, I don't care where you've been, I don't care what you've done, because frankly, I've been there and I've done that. And it is never too late to start over. There was a girl in Philadelphia that came up to me after one of our talks, and it turns out she had slept with 15 guys in the past 3 months. Now, you know the names her school had for her, the label that they called her. That girl, she is a slut, and that's all she's ever gonna be. And I asked her, I said, why are you doing this to yourself? She said, oh, it's fun, you go to parties, you hook up, it's fun. And I said, is it really fun? And for once, someone took this poor girl seriously. She said, look, no, it's not fun. She goes, my parents are going through a divorce right now. The minute I walk into my home, there's nothing but hurt and hate. And just for the moment when those guys hold me, it feels like love. Even though I know it's not, at least I feel like somebody wants me. That girl is not a slut. She's not a this, she's not a that. She has a heart identical to yours and to mine. And ultimately, all that we want is love. So if it's too late for her to start over, then it's too late for me to start over. And frankly, it is never too late for anyone to start over. I don't care who you are, where you've been, what you've done, it doesn't matter. All that matters now is where you go from here. Now, later on in the talk, I'll give you a couple means and ways that you can actually live this lifestyle out. Thank you.
Now, as you could probably imagine how grateful I am that she started waiting for me, and she was afraid if she left those guys who were cheating on her, who were physically abusing her, emotionally abusing her, she was afraid if she left them, she'd miss out on love. But the only way we would have missed out on love is if she stayed with these guys who loved sex more than they loved her, just staying in these relationships, blindly hoping it's going to improve. But she had that respect to step out. And when I met this girl, she was free. She wasn't just available. She was free, confident, independent, pure, mature, and it was just wildly attractive. And I think with girls long for love. Everyone wants love. But I think sometimes a girl may want love so much, she can shoot herself in the foot. And it happens different ways. Like one way is like if a girl goes from relationship to relationship to relationship and never sits still. My brother and I, when we were kids, we'd play this game called lava, right? You take all the cushions off the couch and you like throw them on the floor and you have to jump from cushion to cushion. You jump on a cushion, you jump on the cat, you jump on a cushion. Yeah, you still play? Okay. You can't step between or like you die. And unfortunately, some girls date like that, where they go from boy to boy to boy to boy to boy. By the time the girl gets to college, she has no clue who she is because she's defined her whole identity by the boy she's been clinging to for emotional security. Maybe she confuses their physical affection with love. Maybe she's looking for love her dad never gave her. But either way, a girl needs to find her independence as a woman by the side of Christ. Then she can receive and give the kind of love that she's been longing for. But the number one way, from a guy's perspective, that girls ruin their chances of getting real intimacy is if a girl thinks that dressing modestly is a joke. I'll admit, I'm a guy. I don't know the pressure you girls are under to look and eat and dress a certain way. I mean, we were watching TV a while back, and a Barbie doll commercial came on. So I was like, dude, I have to get that Barbie. So I went to the store and got the Barbie. Shut up. Yeah, I've got issues. No, this is, I don't remember her name. It was like Botox, collagen, silicone Barbie or something. But, girls are told from the ages of like 3 and up, behold womanhood. You too can be a woman, okay? Just eat 3 croutons a day, all right? You dress like a collection of body parts, and girl, you're gonna find love. And so what does every beer commercial, every billboard basically tell women about their bodies? It basically tells girls like, you're too fat. You're too skinny. You're too fat and too skinny. You're a real piece of work. Just constantly, girls are told your body is trash. Hate your body. 5 minutes later, they tell you, worship your body. And during that confusion and a girl's sincere desire to find love and be found beautiful, she may look at Cosmo and 17 magazine, thinks, well, that's a cute outfit. Maybe if I dress like that, I'll meet a nice guy, and maybe we'll find love. Well, it sounds like it makes sense, but what happens is this. If we guys are very visual when it comes to sexuality. And if we see a girl walking down the street dressed like this, let's say she's got one of those new short skirts they have that you can mistake for a wide belt, you know what I'm talking about? They're like belly buttons sticking out, and her top's made of like saran wrap or whatever this is, and spaghetti straps. And we see her walking down the street. We think that she's trying to tell us, like, hey boys, the greatest thing about me is my body. And we'll look at her and we'll be like, I agree, that's a nice body. But if her sexual value is the first thing that draws me to a woman, I might think that that's the best thing she has to offer. Forget her friends and her dreams and her family. I want to get to know the body. And a guy might say or do whatever necessary to get access to her body. And if she gives him access thinking, oh, maybe he'll like me more, usually what happens is the guy loses respect and he gets bored. He moves on, and she's left there thinking, well, maybe if I'd been skinnier, he would have liked me more. Maybe if I'd done more with him sexually, he would have stayed longer. He might not have stayed longer, but he would have used her longer, but heart's made for better kind of love than that. And guys get used too. We all know the pressures go both ways. But with modesty, I'm not saying like girls, I want you to look as ugly as physically possible. I don't want you girls like show up at your prom like with this, this huge dress on, and your boyfriend sees you. He's like, modesty, girl, you're looking good there in your shapeless plaid ankle-length jumper. Hey, that's a nice potato sack. Stay home. I mean, modesty does not mean a girl tries to look ugly. It doesn't dampen down your allure. Modesty means a girl takes the beauty of womanhood and uses it to teach men about her dignity. Because I tell you, I never knew how to treat a girl till I dated one in college who dressed modestly. And it was captivating. Because you could take her seriously as a woman because she wasn't trying to constantly make boys gawk at her body so she'd feel secure. And she had a good figure. She could have dressed like, hey boys, check it out. But the way she dressed said like, hey boys, frankly, I'm worth waiting to see. And under that humility was something radiant you could not get bored with because that girl had that deeper reverence for herself. By the way a girl dresses, by the way a girl dances, you can tell if she wants you to treat her like a gentleman or not. And as Crystalina said, a guy will be as much of a gentleman as a woman requires. And I'll grant you girls, you have the power to turn a guy's head, but you also have the power to turn a guy's heart. All the belly button shirts that are out there, I beg you as a guy not to wear the belly button shirts because a guy's belly button is very different than a girl's belly button, okay? Like a guy's belly button, for one, it's not that exciting. I mean, there's probably lint coming out, Just being honest, we're in Oakland, and I said that at a high school. I'm like, there's probably lint coming out. I look over, there's a freshman girl over here, and she's like, I'm like, you're checking for lint, aren't you? And she's like, ah! She was mortified. It's pretty funny. But the girl's belly is different because that area is the womb, and it is priceless. It's a treasure. It's a mystery. So you veil what demands the reverence. On our wedding day, she's going to have a veil because she's dirty. No, but I'm not going to lift the veil and be like, I promised you're dirty. You veil the bride because she's priceless. You go into a Catholic church, you got a tabernacle there. You open the doors of the tabernacle, you got a veil there before the Eucharist because behind those gold doors is heaven itself, Christ and the Eucharist. It's sacred. The body's a temple, Holy Spirit's a temple, so you veil it because it demands the reverence. And all the belly button shirts, if you want a guy to think you're special, that you're intelligent, that you're worth respecting, showing us your belly button won't help because we guys are so visual. And I'll grant you girls, it's so hard as a guy to be pure nowadays with our thoughts. We need your help. Guys don't like to ask for help. You ever drive with a guy who's like lost? I mean, he'll drive to South America before he finds the convenience store because it's a pride thing. Likewise with purity, but we have to back down. We just say, girls, we need your help on this. It is so hard for us to stay pure. And girls, I know when you go to the stores, it's probably hard to find pure outfits. I know 2 girls in Arizona, I just read this in the newspaper. They show up at the department store to get their prom dress this spring. They show up and they were just couldn't find anything. So they went home all frustrated and they wrote a letter to the department store and they had 1,400 of their friends sign it. And the letter said this, look, we are sick of you carrying these dresses that have slits up to our armpits. They said, we are sick of just the low cut, the belly button, the back, everything. They go, why don't you start carrying some dresses that treat us girls with class instead of all this trash? How about leaving something for the imagination, a little mystery, a little modesty? They submitted it to the department store, and the manager called back the girls and said, hi, this is Mr. So-and-so from the department store. He said, if you girls are interested, we'd like to hire you as the fashion consultants for teenage design for our department store, so you're in charge of all the fashions that come in. The girls have power in this to shape the way that the whole world looks at women, so tap into that. Now, I mean, I'll put Barbie away for now. Well, sorry, she's okay, she's still smiling. But girls, it's funny lately is we have to do all this traveling, and they've got all this increased airport security, so we have to go through the x-ray machines, right? And in my little laptop case, I have to carry like a Barbie doll. I've got like a blonde wig back here, and you got to go through the x-ray machines, which is really pleasant. And we were going through Chicago. There's this guy sitting there, and we go through the x-ray. I put the bag on it, starts to get sucked through. Here's the guy behind the x-ray. He's like, and he's like, huh? And then he pauses it. And his friend's over here doing a little wand x-ray, and he's like, hey, come here. And his friend's like, wait. Comes over, it's like, check it out. He's like, tink, tink, tink. His friend's like, I'm like, okay, back to security. And they press play, comes out, and I'm like, just give me my bag. And I give my Barbie, and I go to grab it, and they're both staring at me. What do you say to them? Do you say, oh, the Barbie, the wig? Yeah, I need that for work. kind of work do you do, you freak? But they let me on the plane, so that was cool. But girls say, well, Jason, if I can't dress sexy, how am I gonna make a guy like me? I mean, can I flirt with boys? And I think it depends what you mean by flirt, because it means different stuff. Like for me, when I was in 2nd grade, if I liked a girl, I'd throw a rock at her. It's just, she's hot, poof, I'm making progress, her welts are going down. But then girls do it different. Like all y'all girls in here flirted like this in the 4th grade. Don't even tell me you didn't. You'd see a cute guy, and you'd be like, oh, he's so cute. And you get with your friends like, oh, he's so cute, what should we do? And your friend's like, oh, I know. Let's give him a note. Oh, that's good, a note, yes. You rip out a sheet of loose leaf paper, get your crayons, your sparkly markers you girls have. And you're like, oh, do you like my friend Shanae? Yes, no, or maybe. It's like a survey, you give him a crayon, he's got to fill it out, yeah. Then what happens is you girls got to 7th grade, got a little more sophisticated with it. You'd see a cute guy in 7th grade, and all you girls would be like, oh, he's so cute. And you get to, oh, he's so cute, what should we do? And your friend's like, oh, I know, let's give him a note. And your friend's like, it's so immature. You're not slow, you're special, And they'd be like, and the other girl would be like, oh, I know. How about when you're leaving class, I'll shove you into him. Oh, that's good, shove me in him, yes. Some of you still doing this? That's okay, that's all right, just one day at a time. That's fine. You're not slow, you're special. But you guys see the girls hitting each other and laughing? The reason why women think this is so funny is because this is what girls talk about when they go to public bathrooms with 30 of them at a time into the bathroom. They have couches in there. They've got like drawing boards. You shove them into this locker, I'll come around the back. Then what happens is a girl gets to high school. Culture basically tells girls, first day of high school, girls, look, you've got something the guys like, better than notes, better than getting shoved into. You've got your body. You can give it to a guy. Guys will like you more. So the girl begins with this mentality, okay, let me get this straight. Hooking up and making out different guys at the party, that's not a big deal. Then she thinks, well, doing this with a guy, it's not a big deal. Doing that with a guy, it's not a big deal. But so long as I technically stay a virgin, I'm being good. Because those girls at school are so much worse than I am, so I'm still being good, and that's not a big deal. And by the time it's said and done, this girl convinces herself that the priceless gift of her body, it's not a big deal. Something starts to die in the girl. I read about this guy, I think he lived in Texas. This dude was sleeping, and his dog started barking. Comes in the backyard, and the dog is there barking at a bush in the backyard. And the guy's like, well, that would be a bush. That's brilliant. Shut up. Go to bed. He goes to sleep. Dog starts barking at the bush again. 15 minutes later, guy gets up. He's all mad. Brought a stick with him into the backyard. Says, come here, Pooch. And smack. And the guy actually beats the dog into submission to shut it up from barking at the bush. Went back to sleep. It's like 2:45 in the morning. Dog starts freaking out, growling at the bush again. The guy threw a fit, cocked a gun, came into the backyard. This guy actually shot and killed the dog in the backyard and went peacefully to sleep. Then what happened is the robber who was hiding in the bushes got out of the bushes, walked over the body of the dead dog, came inside this guy's house, apparently killed him in his sleep, and robbed everything that he owned. And that dog is our conscience. And I've said to my conscience, dude, shut up. Don't remind me I shouldn't be doing this with this girl. Dude, shut up. Don't remind me I should be looking at this. Dude, shut up. And then I kill a voice, do it anyway for the sake of excitement, and I think I'm free. I'm not doing what my parents want. I'm free. And then I think, dude, if I'm so free, why am I so empty afterwards all the time? This is freedom. And it can lead to like a death in a girl who says, Jason, you've got cute little stories, but look, Jason, you don't get it. Jason, look, I'm not a virgin. Or Jason, I had my virginity taken from me. Or Jason, something bad happened to me when I was a little girl. And what good guy, like you're all talking about, as if I really know any, would want a girl like me that's done all the stuff that I've done. Jason, I am damaged goods. It is too late. Once it is gone, it is gone. I'm basically unlovable. And the girl just thinks it is simply too late. Well, I will tell you the greatest example of womanhood and purity in my life is a friend of mine back home who slept with more men than I can count. She's had 3 abortions. And one day she said, I am tired of this. And God said to her, let me make you a new creation. And she said, do you even know who you're talking to? And he said, yeah, I'll make you pure as the driven snow if you trust in my mercy. She did. This girl's life has done a 180. She settled down, married to a friend of mine that raising the most beautiful family. And I totally look up to this girl. She started over. Crystalina started over. I've started over. Now we're getting married in 11 and a half days. Not that anyone's counting. But with with our wedding coming up, we're setting the foundation for our love together. We're doing different things. Like number one, there's no way that we're going to live together before we get married. Shack up and cohabitate. You know how some couples live together, they play house for a little while, test drive each other, then they get married? You ever check out what their divorce rate is in marriage for couples who cohabitate then marry? They have a divorce rate of 80%. 8 out of 10 of them get divorced because they don't know what makes love work. They think you can just test drive each other. So we're not going to shack up. Number two, no way are we going to sleep together before our wedding night. If I had sex with Crystalina tonight, I would be lying to her. My body would be saying, I give myself totally to you. I belong completely to you. Everything that I'm giving is yours. But it'd be a lie. I don't belong to her. I'm not her husband. Even if my intentions were good, the embrace would be a lie. A movie came out a while back called Vanilla Sky, and in it, Tom Cruise sleeps with this girl, and after they have sex, she says to him, your body is making promises to me, even if you won't. And the embrace of sex is that promise. I give myself completely to you. And unless I'm married, it's simply not true. And you might be thinking, okay, Jay, look, I get it. Okay, Jason, you shouldn't use a girl. But Jason, what if it's not like that? What if it's not like every time you get together, you're having sex? What if you really love each other and you totally agree that you're ready for this? Why can't you have sex? I'd say step back. What is love? Love means you do what is best for your beloved. And I ask you, is it best for Crystalina to wake up tomorrow morning thinking, am I going to be 2 weeks pregnant on our wedding day? Is my mom going to find out? Am I going to get disease? Am I getting used? Is it best for a girl to put her through these fears? It never is. So why are we abstinent? It's not because we're afraid of pregnancy or disease. It's because of love. It is so simple because love can wait to give, but lust cannot wait to get. And if you're in a sexually active relationship, you can take the sex out and you can see if there's love there. We did this where we were in Michigan, speaking of this huge public high school, and there's 1,000 freshmen and 1,000 sophomores. The juniors and seniors weren't at the talk. And so after the talk, I'm hanging out with some students in the front, and a senior runs into the auditorium, and he's all mad, and he's like, and he's running through, he's like, dude, and he comes up to the front, and he's like, dude, who told my girlfriend all about secondary purity? And I said, me. And he comes up, and he's like, dude, and I go, what's the problem? And he said, dude, it turns out he was a senior and his girlfriend was a freshman. He was one of these older guys who didn't have enough social skills to date a girl his own age, so he runs after the younger ones, but I'm sure that only happens in Michigan. But what's the deal? What's the deal with the older guy, younger girl thing? How come older girls almost never go for younger guys? The reason is this. Girls mature faster than guys do. I'm sure you girls are thinking, wow, thanks for the revelation. But think about it. Look at a 14-year-old girl. 14-year-old girl's sitting at home, and she's thinking, I want a relationship where we can just talk about our friends and our family. We can communicate about our feelings, and yep. Okay, good. Look at a 14-year-old guy. 14-year-old guy is sitting at home, and he's like, I can make noises with my armpit. This is cool. We're just different. So a 14-year-old girl can get bored with a 14-year-old guy. But along comes Mr. High School guy to the junior high girl, Mr. Senior to the sophomore freshman, Mr. College guy to the high school girl. And immediately the girl says, oh my goodness, this is exciting. He's older than me, he's a little more mature, and he likes me. This is exciting. Little does she know that the younger girl is, the more naive she is to have heard the lines that he has to give her. Lines like this, baby girl, I love you so much. I've never felt this way when I was with any girl ever before. And I'm a guy in all of my temptations, but I don't want to pressure you to do anything sexually that you're not ready for because I want it to be for the sake of love. And she thinks, oh, he's so loving. Little does she realize the guy will physically take from her everything she's willing to give him. He's not leading her to purity, he's wearing it down. He might even give her like a promise ring. A promise ring is like a little pacifier. You pop a pacifier in a kid's mouth, he thinks there's the real thing going on. And an older guy might give a girl a promise ring so she thinks any sexual stuff they do together is more special because she's got a little bling bling thing going on. And this does not mean that all promise rings are bad. It doesn't mean that all older guys are bad. But if he's as good as you think he is, how come some girl his own age hasn't snatched him up by now? Older guys know that younger girls are less likely to refuse them because the girls want to win the older guy's approval, but to step back. And so this senior runs into the auditorium. He's all mad. And I said, what's the problem? And he goes, well, he said, I just saw my girlfriend in the hallway and she looked all happy. And I said, where you been the last hour? And she said, oh, enjoying my new purity. So I came in here to see what the heck happened to her. And I said, well, you can sleep with her again. Just marry her one day. And he's like, and I go, well, isn't she worth waiting for? And he goes, no, it is the love test. and only when love is put to the test can its value be seen. So have the courage to apply it. Thirdly, and this is huge, no way on earth are we going to put her body on birth control and contraception. How disrespectful could I possibly get to a woman's body to treat it like fertility is a disease, so we got to give her shots and pills so I can neuter her, so I can have lifeless love with her? You know what your doctors do not tell teenage girls about the pill? How many girls, when they gave you the pill or Depo-Provera, that shot which neuters you for a couple months, did they ever bother to tell you, girl, oh, here's your pill. Oh, and by the way, if you have 3 sexual partners in your life, you're 15 times as likely to develop cervical cancer. And if you're on the pill, this is worse because the pill allows cancer-causing agents to have access to your body. Oh, and also, by the way, the pill also harms your immune system, so you're more likely to get sexually transmitted diseases. Do they tell you this? No. Do they ever tell the girl, oh, here's your pill? Oh, and by the way, if you take this for an extended period of time before ever having kids, you are increasing your odds of developing breast cancer. Do they tell the girls that? No. Do they ever tell the girls this? Oh, here's your pill, and this one's the kicker. Do they ever tell the girls, oh, here's your pill. Oh, and by the way, as a teenage girl, as a woman, your uterus is between, the lining of your uterus, the endometrium, is between 5 and 13 millimeters thick. But don't worry, once we get you on the synthetic hormones of the pill, we'll thin out the lining of your uterus to about 1 millimeter, which means if you get pregnant on the pill, don't worry, the pill will abort your child before you ever know that you're pregnant. So if you're a guy sleeping with a girl who's on the pill, you could already be a daddy, having aborted the kids that you didn't know you ever had because your girlfriend was on the pill. They don't have to tell girls this. They might even deny it, even though it's sitting on his desk, on the physician's desk reference, and it's in the info packet on the pill. Do they ever tell the girls there's a part of your cervix called the ectropion, and it's very liable to get infection. In 10 years from now, it gets replaced with a different type of tissue, and your body will be able to resist infections better. But since you're a teenager, your body isn't ready for that traffic. It's like your heart, it's not made for the multiple sexual partners. When it comes to what the doctors say next, they say, well, girls, look, you girls need the pill. You missed a cycle? Oh my gosh, you had a bad period? Oh, you're having cramps? Oh, you have acne? Oh, you have a cyst? You have to go on the pill. 4 doctors in a row told Crystalina, oh, you have to go on the pill for medical reasons. It's not a sin to be on it for medical reasons, but he told you have to go on it. So we went to 4 doctors, all saying, oh, you have to go on the pill. We finally went to a good gynecologist, and I asked him, how many teenage girls have to be on the pill for medical reasons? And he said, honestly, and I said, please. He said, we have the alternatives. The pill just suppresses the problems. It doesn't really heal them. And so he healed her, and she has been fine ever since. Towards the end of the talk, I'll point you to a resource where you can go to find these good doctors, but we're lied to about it. When it comes to all this sexually transmitted, you may be wondering, well, Jason, if you guys aren't going to use contraception in marriage, what do you have, like 47 children? Well, probably not. But if we need to space out kids, we're going to use something called natural family planning. It's 99% effective in spacing out kids, totally natural, and couples who use it have a divorce rate of like 2%. There's so much wisdom in the church. But when it comes to like sexually transmitted diseases, I'll ask you, for those of you who haven't heard our talk before, what's the most common sexually transmitted disease right now in North America? What would you say? AIDS? No. Herpes? No. Chlamydia? No. Syphilis? No. Warts? No. VD? No. Gonorrhea? Usually we come to high schools, I say, what's the most common STD? And they're like, AIDS, gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. Some guy in the corner's like, crabs. And I'm like, no, it's not crabs, stay away from him. But what is it? We were just in Michigan and Toronto. We asked 5,000 students, what's the most common STD? None of them got the answer right. It wasn't AIDS. AIDS is less than 1% of all the STDs. It's pretty rare compared to the rest. It's not herpes. One of you said herpes. Herpes is real common. It's like 1 out of 5 people in North America now has genital herpes, which is incurable. It's not chlamydia. Someone said chlamydia. Chlamydia is real scary because like half the guys who have it don't know that they're infected. They look fine. Problem is, if a girl sleeps with one of these guys, it can infect her and sterilize her before she ever knows that she's infected. Sterilize means keep you from ever being able to have kids. But the #1 STD by a landslide, the condom companies, it's their little secret. They don't want anyone to know about it. Why? It kills more girls every year than AIDS does because it causes 99% of cervical cancer. But why they don't want you to know about it? is because the condom does not protect you from getting this STD, because it is spread from mid-thigh to mid-abdomen contact. Any skin-to-skin sexual contact in this region can transmit the virus. Even hand-to-genital contact can transmit it. But they're all hung up on safe sex, so you don't want them to know, they don't want you to know that that whole thing is a lie. As you said, it's human papillomavirus, HPV. 1% of people get genital warts. 99% don't get warts. You feel fine, you look fine, you don't get tested. I know a guy who got married, had a baby girl. She's like a year old. She coughed all the time. So we took her to the doctor. He said, hey, doc, can you take a peek at my girl? She's got a sore throat. And he said, sure. Looked in the girl's throat, and the doctor said, sir, I'm sorry, but your daughter has genital warts growing through her throat. And the dad said, Mike, how could she get that? I don't have a sexually transmitted disease. My wife doesn't have one. And the doctor said, well, which one of you two had been sexually active before you're married? And the guy's eyes got big, and he said, well, my wife was a virgin, but I've been around. But look, doc, safe sex condom every time. And the doctor said, I'm sorry you haven't heard, but scientifically, safe sex is a joke. He said, sir, you've contracted human papillomavirus outside of marriage, carried it undetected into marriage. You've given this to your wife, and your child contracted this in her womb, and we'll need to periodically burn the warts off your daughter's throat with a laser because we don't have a cure for this. I'm sorry, sir, and your wife needs to start getting pap smears every year to make sure this doesn't develop in a bad way for her. And the guy sat there, and he was like, how come no one told me this? How come everyone just told me safe sex? How many people have this? How many people have it? This is a Journal of Gynecology, the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. They just did a study of about 17-year-old girls who've only slept with one guy so far. They found out of the 242 women who'd only had one sexual partner, we found that the risk of acquiring cervical human papillomavirus infection was 46%. Meaning nearly half of the girls who'd only had one sexual partner at the age of 17 already had HPV. The good news is the majority of people who get it end up being fine. It doesn't cause them any trouble, usually goes away on its own. But it's so rampant now, it's causing some huge problems like cervical cancer. Why don't they want to tell you about it? Reasons like this. Cosmopolitan magazine, all right? If your girls are not familiar with Cosmo, I actually think that this is a great instruction manual on how to get used by a guy. All right, so all you do is you subscribe and get used in like 3 weeks. It's really quick. It's great. And some girls will say, oh, that's not true. They got great makeup tips. I'm sure they do. Check out what it says on the cover. Pick him up tips from the editors of Maxim magazine, that runs an article on how to cheat on your wife so she and the kids won't find out. You're learning how to pick up these guys. And then it says, and more no-brainer lines. No-brainer lines. You want them to think you're smart, and you start off meeting with a no-brainer line. This stuff is a joke. It says here, gynecologist news your doctor's too wimpy to tell you. So you're like, okay, more eternal wisdom from Cosmo. Open it up, and it says here, dear teenage girls, to make sure you don't get a virus during sex, first it doesn't give you the option of abstinence if you're worth waiting for. Then it says, examine the condom tip for tiny holes before sex to make sure that no viruses will sneak through during sex. Thank you. They sort of skipped out the fact condom's useless in preventing HPV. They sort of skipped out the fact that you can get every STD virtually now by means of oral sex. Why didn't they tell you that? Because 10 pages later, they recommend you give your boyfriend oral sex so he likes you more. This stuff is an absolute joke. Why doesn't anyone else talk about it? Well, this I just got off Planned Parenthood's website for teens. It says, sexuality relationship info you can trust from Planned Parenthood. And here it comes. Quote, condoms can be an exciting part of sexual relationships. It used to be like falling in love, candlelight dinners. Now it's condoms, so romance is always alive and well with Planned Parenthood. Then it says here, it says if you act responsibly and use protection every time, you can have a fulfilling sex life no matter what infection you may have. Thanks, but no thanks. I mean, protection? What kind of joke is this? There's a huge billboard in San Diego near the beach where I surf at called Pacific Beach. And a billboard, all these guys on it, and it said, protect yourself, protect your partner, protect your community, wear a condom. Like you're a patriot or something. Protect the community with my condom. This stuff is a joke. I mean, think about it. Who do you protect yourself from? Your enemies. If you have to protect yourself when you're supposed to be making love and totally giving yourself to someone, it means the timing is off. Wait for marriage. If you want to protect yourself, forget it. Protect your wife, guys, by not sleeping around now so your wife won't end up with cervical cancer. You girls, protect your children who could get STDs if you're promiscuous. Protect them. Lay down your lives for them to guard these people. Why doesn't the government talk about it? Well, here's the big research that the government did. National Institutes of Health did this huge study on condom effectiveness. This is the most authoritative research that has ever been done in the history of the world on condoms, and what they found is this. For men, They said, for men, we do not have sufficient scientific evidence to prove that the condom can protect men from 6 of 8 of some of the most common STDs, and we do not have sufficient scientific evidence to prove that the condom can protect women from 7 of 8 of some of the most common STDs. I read this, then I read it again. I'm like, how come they're teaching safe sex? I found in a little footnote in it. It said, if you want to get the audio tapes of this conference, send us $200 and we'll give them to you. So I said, fine. I cut a check for $200, mailed it to DC, and in the mail came 20 hours of audio tapes. I started listening to them. 14 hours into it, I found what I was looking for. They had this conference, about 30 doctors, gynecologists on stage, and a huge crowd of people, and you could ask them questions. One lady gets up in the back, and she says, doctors, shouldn't we tell teenagers about HPV? And the doctor gets up, and he said, well, we may want to go there, but he said, look, he said, we have secondary prevention methods. I didn't know what that means. It means burning it or freezing it off of a girl's cervix, which can keep her from having kids. But he says, oh, we've got secondary prevention methods. And then he said, look, he said, if you told teenagers about HPV, he said it would cause an epidemic of panic, fear, and anxiety amongst young people who are just starting their sexual careers. Ha, ha, ha. And all the doctors laughed. Our sexual careers, like we're budding prostitutes or something. You talk about an insult to your dignity, no self-control. I will tell you no self-control. I bought Crystalina for her birthday a Chihuahua, right? One of these little glorified rat dogs. And, you know, this little fur-bearing cockroach is like running all over the place. And we actually just blew up a picture of him so you can see what we're talking about. So here's the little freak of nature. And, you know, the little guy here recently hit puberty, okay, when the dogs are in heat, and he's incapable of abstinence. I even gave him a chastity talk. It didn't go so well. And he didn't get it, so what we had to do is we took him to the vets down at Pacific Beach, and we neutered him. There's no option for a Chihuahua in heat. So here's a picture of him after the surgery. He's got his little satellite dish on his head and everything, a little salad bowl there. He's pretty miserable. And this is how the government basically sees you. Look, teens, you're incapable of self-control. Neuter yourselves with contraception so you can have lifeless love. I happen to have a lot more confidence in you, so does Crystalina, and she'll share some jazz about it too.
A couple things. When I was in high school, I would hear things like this about STDs and whatnot, and I would be freaked out because I knew the lifestyle I was living and there were chances that something may be wrong with me. But when I turned my life around, there were certain things I needed to face head on, and one of them was getting tested. So for those of you in the audience that have been sexually active, you've got to go get tested and do this with a little urgency. Just because you feel fine, you look fine, you may not be so fine. And I've met several high school girls who have HPV. They didn't want to deal with it, they didn't want to go get tested, and the cervical cancer got so bad they had to remove part of their cervix. Don't put it off. Now, if you want to get tested, what you can do is go in the phone book, go in the yellow pages under abortion alternatives. And there should be some good crisis pregnancy centers and clinics. Some of them you can just go to, others you need to call up and say, look, I'm not pregnant, but where can I go get tested? Usually it's free and it's safe. And within a couple of days, you can know if something's going on with you. And don't go to a dump like Planned Parenthood. And a lot of these places, they offer you condoms, they offer you birth control. But I have the utmost confidence in every single one of you. You don't need their birth control because you have the self-control and you're better than that. So to go get tested. Now, enough bad news about STDs and whatnot. What is some good news? How can you actually live this lifestyle out? A couple of things. The first and foremost, for those of you that are in a sexually active relationship, to take the sex out and really see what your relationship is based upon. Because if you take the sex out, it will give you the clarity of mind to step back and say, okay, is this love or is this lust? Are they using me? Do they really love me? What's going on? And really put your love in the light and see what it's made of. Because if you take the sex out and you end up fighting and arguing, you end up breaking up, you're probably better off without that person to begin with. But if you guys end up staying together, what peace of mind knowing that that person is in it for you and not what you're giving them. That they love you as a person and not what you're doing with them. That is peace of mind right there. So to have the guts and courage to take it out and see what it's made of. This second thing, right now Jason and I, we're training ourselves in faithfulness. Chastity trains you in that faithfulness. Because one day when we're married, I'm just going to be 9 months pregnant, ready to go. And Jason is going to be at work. And he might have some cute little hot secretary now. Do you think the same temptations won't be there just because he has a ring on his finger? Of course not. They're still going to be there. But the thing is, he's trained himself in faithfulness now, so within marriage, he can be all the more faithful to me. So to train yourselves in faithfulness. And I know a lot of you are dating right now, and realize most of you right now is dating someone else's future spouse. To guard that person, protect that person, as you would want your future spouse guarded and protected in the same exact way. Now, when you date someone, to raise your standards high. And I know a lot of people say raise your standards high. When I say that, never have to lower yourself to date anyone. And I know a lot of people do that. And you know when you do that. But to keep your standards high, because everyone in this room, no matter where you've been, what you've done, you are worth waiting for, and you deserve the best. And if that person doesn't want to wait for you, they're always pressuring you this or that, frankly, they're not worth you, and you deserve better than that. So to set your standards high. And I think this is the most important thing of all. If you want to have pure relationships, a pure mind, you've got to have a pure soul. That is the key to it, to go to confession. Go to confession at least once a month. Jason and I, we go every 2 weeks. And I really think it was the power of confession that healed me of all of my sexual sins, and I was able to stay away from that lifestyle because there's such power in that. And I see confession as this. Confession is God's mercy. In that room with that priest is God's mercy. And if you turn your back on confession, you run from confession, it's like you're running and turning your back on God's mercy. So to go and get that clean slate. And I tried everything under the sun to stop living that lifestyle. I was miserable, I hated myself, and nothing stopped me. I tried everything. But the second I did this with God, that's when my life did a 180, and I haven't fallen since then. So if you truly want to live out abstinence, chastity, living a life of purity, you've got to do it with God, or frankly, you won't do this at all, and you'll fall on your face just like I did. So give your lives to God, and He will bless you abundantly for that.
Now, where do you go from here? Thank you, guys. So, where do you go from here? I'd say, girls, take off after school, go to a shopping mall, buy a white candle, let your husband light that on your wedding night as a sign of the purity that you've maintained from this day until the day that he lifted your veil. Some of you girls call it the married life. Some of you girls call it the religious life. Single life, you're called to be a nun. You're going to have the best spouse there is, and that's Christ himself. But chastity gives you freedom to see where God's calling you to. And if you've made some mistakes, it is never too late. We were at this high school. This guy was talking at a high school, and it was hilarious. He calls the guys up. He said, guys, he goes, raise your hands if you guys want to marry a virgin. And all the players and all the jocks were, yeah, I want to marry a virgin, yeah. So all the guys had their hands up. And he's like, okay. He said, keep your hands up. And everyone's like, yeah. And he goes, ladies, I want you to look at the guys. And the guy's like, uh-oh. And they said, girls, look at the guys. And next time any of those guys pressures you to do anything sexually, I want you to remind them how important purity is to them. And the guys were like, oh. And he's like, no, keep your hands up, to realize that purity is attractive. And you might be thinking, Jason, look, I'm not a virgin anymore. But ask yourself, am I just a date or am I a soulmate? Am I just a for now girl or am I a forever girl? It's never too late. I know a girl who got abducted in Texas. A guy did disgusting things to her. When he was done with her, he threw her in a latrine in Southern California. Construction worker came, looked in the latrine, the girl's up to her neck, shivering in the human waste. And they looked down there and said, my God, who could do this to a little girl? They lower a guy, fireman in there to pull her out. She sees him coming down. She was scared to death, started to take the human waste, throwing it at the guy. She said, just don't touch me, just leave me here. She'd been so hurt, she didn't know who to trust, and she wanted to literally live in the sewer. And some of us have been so hurt, maybe through sexual mistakes, that we think it is just too late, just leave me here. But I stick my hands out and I say, girl, it is never too late. You still deserve the real kind of love. So girl, get up. Guys, where do you go from here? Guys, I would say, I did a poll of 1,400 girls at a high school, and I had them vote on how many of them thought if a guy practiced chastity in high school that would be undeniably attractive. 1,400 of the 1,400 girls said, yes, it is undeniably attractive. It's tough. We were at this high school. They had the best high school basketball team in the country. And after the talk, the center of the basketball team comes up to me. He's like 6'10". And he walks up to me and he's like, can we talk in the back? And I'm like, yes, sir, yes. And I went back somewhere. I said, what's going on? And he goes, honestly, man, He goes, I've been with so many girls. He goes, I've done so much stuff. And he goes, I knew every time I was killing her, but she wanted it. I wanted it. Half the time you're drunk, so you can just blame it on the beer. But he goes, dude, how do you start over when you've been where I've been? He goes, I want to learn faithfulness before I meet my wife. I don't want to give her all my memories, diseases, baggage. He goes, I want to give her a clean heart. How do you get that when you've been where I've been? And I said, dude, you've already started. You have that will to love her. That's where purity starts, in your heart, not from your body. I said, it's hard, but I said, you ever watch a wrestling match in high school? And if you're wrestling, and if you get the back of your opponent's head, you can direct his body wherever you want it to go. I said, it's the same with purity. If you can get control of the way you think about girls, you'll change the way you talk about them, you'll change the way you treat them. And he goes like, dude, he's like, man, that makes sense, but man, he goes, dude, it's so hard in the passion of the moment just to stop. And I said, dude, you know from sports, your body will do what you tell it to. I said, imagine you're married and with your wife in bed at the most pleasurable, exciting moment of your entire life, and the house caught on fire. What would you say? Would you be like, oh no, it's too powerful. I can't say no to sex. We're gonna die. No, you'd get your Snow White butt out of bed, save the kids, get on the front lawn, because your body will do what you tell it to. So don't wait for the girl to stop. But the greater feeling of responsibility you have for her, the more real love there is. And I will grant you, this lifestyle is hard. But realize that purity is a gift from Jesus. We have to ask him of it, and he'll give it to us. If you want it, as Crystalina said, come to confession. Don't be all vague with the priest and be like, Father, forgive me. I kicked my sister's cat in the living room 7 times, and I did some stuff with my girlfriend. Priest be like, what? I go, stuff. My girlfriend, stuff. Be specific. It's not like you'll say, Father, forgive me. My girlfriend, I did this. And the priest will be like, you did what? I've never even heard of that. Is that even physically possible? What is that? Get out. No, he's heard it before. And then the slate, if that priest tells anyone in the world what you said in confession, he is excommunicated for breaking the seal of the confessional. And you may think, well, dude, I know this priest. I don't want to tell him. You could go to a different parish. I asked a priest once, what do you think of young people you know who come to you? You thought highly of them, and you found out that they made these mistakes. What do you think of them? He said, actually, I have such admiration of them for their courage and their humility to approach confession. I look up to that in them. And so realize to come to confession. Secondly, to come to the Eucharist, which is the fountain of purity. We go to Mass every day of the week because the purity that you get from the Eucharist doesn't take away your hormones, but it gives you love. So become intensely Eucharistic. Thirdly, and this is huge, devotion to Our Lady. This thing is the rosary, all right? It is the bomb, okay? Do you know when the atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, you know how many people lived in a 1-mile radius? 8 guys. These 8 guys lived 8 blocks from where the atom bomb went off. The wave of heat ripped through the city, and all that was left of people was their shadows, because the wave of heat would hit you, incinerate you, then leave on any standing structures the outline of where your body had been. It's all that was left of people except for these 8 guys who lived 8 blocks from where the bomb went off. And a total of 200 scientists came to examine these guys, found out that none of them had even been exposed to a trace of the radiation. This last weekend I was reading about a nuclear engineer for the Air Force and Navy said that at the point where their house was, the wave of heat would have been between 20,000 and 30,000 degrees Fahrenheit at a pressure of 600 pounds a square inch flying through the air. They said that it is physically, scientifically impossible to survive, and the guys didn't have a trace of radiation. Doctors, atheists, agnostics couldn't figure it out. They asked the guys, what do you think it was? And the guys said, well, it's pretty easy. They said, the only reason why this house is standing as opposed to all around it is this is the house we prayed a rosary in every single day. And if Our Lady can hook us up like that, I mean, as a guy, you look at the pornography, it takes like 20 seconds to look at it, then it takes like 20 years to forget what you saw. And for me, it was devotion to Our Lady that cleansed that stuff out of my head so I could properly look at a girl. So we have brought hundreds of rosaries to give out for free to you guys. We have brought hundreds of miraculous medals. Mother Teresa called these things spiritual bullets. You know, married people wear rings to remind me to be faithful. We wear these to remind us to be pure. So we brought hundreds of those, and we got a bunch of other little schnick-schnacks to give to you guys for free afterwards too. One is I wrote a little book called Pure Love, and so everybody gets a copy of Pure Love. That's going to be on both sides. We also made these little catalogs. If you don't get everything else, there's catalogs here. They got like books and tapes and jazz. They got t-shirts. I like the girls' t-shirts, not that I wear them, but they're sort of snarky. Like one girl's t-shirt says like, I'm not playing hard to get, I am hard to get. So that's in there. Then we made these little abstinence commitment cards. It's sort of like an ATM card, but you can't get any money out of it, sort of like mine. But you can sign it, you can date it. My friend got one of these in high school, met him in college. He was in high school. Yeah, I'll save myself my bride. That's cool. Signs it, dates it, put it in his wallet. Got to my college, he met my friend Jenny. They fell in love. They started dating. They got engaged. Walking down the street, and his card falls out of his wallet. He's like, oh. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, nothing. Give it to me. And she's like, no. She runs off. And she goes, oh, a purity pledge card. And he's like, yeah. And she goes, I signed one of those in high school too. And he's like, for real? She digs into her purse, pulls out her card. They put them next to each other. They had signed the same type of card on the same year of the same month on the same day years before they ever met. Now, this isn't a coupon for a husband, but it's a good place to start. So we got a bunch of those. On top of that, I wrote a book called If You Really Love Me that just got published. And what we're going to do is, where's my beloved Shanaina here? You get the first free one. Heads up, very good. Close enough. And since you guys were generous enough to let us tape here, we've brought over 100 of those books to give you guys for free. So that's first come, first serve. But bigger gift than that, as of today, this is about the biggest gift I could give you. I have literally thousands of people who are praying for you. I have high schools in Washington and Oregon. I have 550 high school students at Marian Catholic High School down in San Diego praying for you. I have about 50 friends back home who are praying for you. I wrote a letter to 100 convents of nuns. That's like the ammo of the church right there. They are praying for you. I had lunch with AC Green this last week. He's the guy who played for the Lakers, practiced abstinence until marriage, and he has agreed to be praying for you guys. One better, I sent a letter to the Pope. The Pope has all these nuns that answer his mail. It's sort of like the elves at the North Pole. It's the same concept. I wrote a letter. I said, dear nuns, I heard you get the Pope's mail. I said, I heard that if you get a really important prayer request, you'll give it to the Holy Father and he'll hook us up with some prayers. So dig this. Wrote a letter. Came back and said, dear Mr. Evert, we've received confirmation through the Vatican that His Holiness Pope John Paul II is specifically praying for the young people that you speak to on chastity, that you're receiving the fruits of the prayers of that living saint. And all I would ask in return is a couple things. Number one, who do I want you guys to be praying for? Every high school, college student who's ever going to watch this video in those cameras, I beg this high school, and I've already asked those thousands of people to be praying for the people who will see those videos, and I ask the people who are sitting in your high school classrooms right now, your CCD classes watching this video, I want you to pray for all the other students who are watching it. Who knows? Your future bride, your future groom might be seeing the video someday. You never know what lifestyle they're in. I know a girl who's 14 years old, fell out of bed and freaked out, and she's like, I have to pray for my future husband. She's like 14 years old, gets next to her bed, prayed for her future husband, yada, 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 went to bed. 10 years later, she met this guy. They fell in love, they got married, and she said, honey, I prayed for you one night when I was 14. And he's like, oh, cool, thanks. She's like, So she goes to her diary, pulls it out, says, look, there it is, the middle of the night I prayed for you. And he said, I used to have a journal back then, let me see what I was doing. Opens his journal up, dusts it off, he starts flipping through, and he goes, I know that was the time of the year that I was in the war, because he was a veteran. Started flipping through, found the exact night, and then he falls silent. And she said, honey, what does it say? And he said, honey, the night that you prayed for me was the night when the enemy troops came across our lines. They slaughtered almost every man in my platoon, and they spared me. So, thanks for your prayers. Prayers are good. Prayers are good. So I would beg your prayers, not only for all the students who see this, but actually also for Crystalina and I in our marriage, which is coming up. We ask your prayers for that as well. And the last thing, thank you very much. But now, one of the last things we want to leave with you guys is we're going to offer your school something called a Pure Love Club. It's chastity. It's not like an abstinence bereavement group. You like get together at lunch and you're like, did you have sex? No. Do you have sex? No. Let's hug. This is basically, we're raising up an army around the country of people who are spreading this message through their schools, and we'll leave the guidelines of this club with the club at your school. And if you're watching the video, you can go to our website. You can find the guidelines for the club there. Questions and all the materials and stuff that we gave out are going to be there on that website also. Now, we've been able to explain certain things today, but the one thing I know we can't explain to you honestly is the peace and the joy that come from chastity. It's worth more than all the pleasures of the world. And when you bring the gift of purity into a relationship, you bring Christ into the relationship, and there's so much peace, and that purity will be your super glue. You will have romance without regret, and you can fall in love for the right reasons. If there is only 60 seconds I have to speak to you today, this is the only thing I would even bother telling you. That if after this talk, your heart is a little heavy, you got some thinking to do, all you have to know is one thing, and that is how God looks at you for doing that stuff. And this is how God sees you. A dad a few years ago dropped his son off at preschool in Armenia. He said, I love you, Armando. I'll pick you up after school. Promise to get you. Kisses his son. He goes, promise come get you, bud. Dad drove to work. Huge earthquake struck Armenia, and the dad shoots the car back to the school, but it was too late. Schools collapsed, the faculty was dead, and the dad shows up and he goes, I know my son is in the east corner of that school. And the dad starts tearing off the rocks and the glass and the metal, and he dug for an hour. He dug for 5 hours. He dug for 10 hours. His knuckles were bleeding open. His back was cramped up. He dug for 20 hours through the night, and he said later, all I was thinking of when I dug for my son was the promise I always made to him, Armand, no matter what happens, I'm always going to be there for you. Digs 30 hours, nothing. 38 hours later, he shoves a boulder off, and under it is the face of his son. And he looks down upon his son, and then his son looks up to him, and his son says, Papa. His son turns to 14 kids trapped alive with him and said, see, I told you my daddy was coming to get me. I told you he promised. That is the love of the Heavenly Father, and all he says today is welcome home. You guys have been an awesome audience. We love you very much. Have a wonderful life. Thank you.
I, Jason,
take you, Crystalina, to be my wife. I promise to be true to you. In good times. And in bad. In sickness. And in health. I will love you. And honor you. All the days of my life. And you repeat after me, Crystalina. I, Crystalina, take you, Jason, to be my husband. I promise to be true to you. In good times. And in bad. In sickness. And in health. I will love you. And honor you. All the days of my life.
Wind it up! Take your feathers,
We hope you got a lot out of the talk, and we wanted to invite you to check out our website at www.pureloveclub.com. If you have questions about any of the statistics I provided during the talk, or about alternatives to the pill and its link to breast cancer, the answers are on this site.
It also has a question and answer library that answers the most common questions teens have on dating, relationships, sexual purity, and even STDs. If you're interested in starting up a Pure Love Club at your school, you'll also find the information you need on that as well.
During our presentation, I passed out some books and commitment cards to the students, and if you'd be interested in getting those, just visit the online store at pureloveclub.com.
Finally, if you'd like to have Jason and I come and speak at your school, parish, or conference, call Catholic Answers at 619-387-7200. A public school version of our talk is available in case your high school isn't Catholic. For more information, visit our website. If you'd enjoyed our presentation of Romance Without Regret, please consider helping us in our work, including our project to distribute this video to every high school in North America. If you're able to make a donation, please call 619-387-7200.
Again, we wish you all the best, and we want to assure you of our prayers. Please keep us in your prayers as well, and never forget that you're all worth waiting for. God bless.